Chipping Campden, your postcard today from the county of Gloucestershire. We are here in front of the most gorgeously coloured church, which is soaring to the heavens like all good churches should do. Tell us about that beautiful stone.
Well, the stone comes rather obviously from the nearby ground. The beauty of the Cotswolds is that the houses, the churches, appear to have come out of the ground, and they literally have, because the builders built with what was at hand. So in Warwickshire you have the half-timbered houses. Here they built of stone. The stone is the most lovely colour. The oolitic limestone ridge, of which it's part, begins at Bath and goes diagonally across England. And particularly in the North Cotswolds, where you have this lovely honey-coloured stone. And the beauty depends really on the man-made beauty of the architects and the builders, and the juxtaposition with the natural God-made beauty, the fields. And the beauty of Campden is that it's had such zeal in being preserved that the nature comes right up to the town. We don't have suburbs.
You don't. And I think the other thing is, because you're not on an A road, you're on these little windy roads of Gloucestershire, Worcestershire and Warwickshire.
Yes.
It's quite difficult to even find you at times, isn't it?
Well, people do, it is getting busier, but people do tend to have to come here specially. We're not on, like Broadway, on the main road between Worcester and Oxford. You have to seek Campden out.
And we've sought it out.
Yes, and you got your reward.
It is, and it is a reward,
yes.
Because you look down that high street and you see these beautiful coloured stone. Oh, I mean, it makes you want to eat it. You want to get a spoon out and eat it.
Oh.
I think you feel a bit like Winnie the Pooh here, don't you, with the honey pot?
Yes.
Yes. Don't you? You want to sort of go like that and eat Chipping Campden.
Right.
You don't want to.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's one way.
Well, you're a slimmer woman, and I am not, and I just enjoy sort of scrumptious places, and scrumptious is Campden.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about this area, which you've just described, is the fact that the Cotswolds run over such a large area, because you think of Bath as being the Cotswolds, but you don't think of anywhere as so far north and into the English Midlands.
Well, it does narrow. It does narrow as you come north, and Campden is on the northern tip, and we're also on the western scarp. So, although the middle of the Cotswolds is very beautiful, we get the distant views over the Severn from Dover's Hill over to Wales. And so, because we're on the edge, and a lot of the villages called something edge after that, we do get the distant views, which is rather beautiful. We're also slightly sheltered, because although we're on the northern tip, we're in a little saucer.
Right.
And so if you stand a little higher ground and look round, we're surrounded by these rather gentle hills, which makes Campden rather a sheltered spot. In fact, the name Campden arises from the words meaning a settlement in a valley.
Oh, right.
And that's the ancient name for Campden. People who are visitors, not you of course, tend to call it for short Chipping. But in fact, the inhabitants call it Campden. Campden is the older name. So Campden is the settlement in the valley. Chipping is the market town. You get it in other names like Chipping Norton, Chipping Sodbury, Cheapside.
Yes.
And that was about the 13th century, whereas the name Campden dates from about the 7th century.
So it then became a centre for what?
For wool. We mentioned the stone. The other major contribution to the prosperity of Campden was wool. You probably know that every schoolboy knows, I'm sure, that the wealth of the nation of England in the medieval times was the wool trade. It was also the source of the wealth of Campden. So this is sometimes referred to as a wool church, which rather mystifies visitors. But how can a church be a wool church? But what they mean, it's short for the money for the building of the church came from the wool merchants.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lime trees planted in 1770 to represent the 12 apostles. But what nobody thought at the time was people wanted lime tea. So all the tea gatherers of Gloucestershire would come here to pick the limes to have aromatic tea.
really the history of Campden is the history of, in short, of about 4 eminent men. And the first one was William Greville, who built his house in the High Street, which is probably the oldest in the town, about 1380. His tomb is in the chancel of this church. It's a very fine brass, and not quite modestly, the epitaph says that he was the fairest of the wool merchants of all England.
Really?
Which was probably true, but it is not quite modest.
He wasn't backwards in coming forwards.
He was prosperous, and he knew it.
And what about the other 3 guys?
The other 3? Well, then we have a very famous benefactor, perhaps exceeding Greville, Baptist Hicks, who built his fine Campden house over beyond the churchyard wall. It was built at the very beginning of the 17th century. It was lived in for about 30 years, and it was inhabited by the Royalist troops in the Civil War. 1643, they were here with Prince Rupert. They left it in 1645 when they burnt it down,
that's what happened,
which seemed rather a poor repayment for the hospitality they'd had. There are all sorts of theories. Some people said they had a final party. Some people said they burnt it down so that the parliamentarians wouldn't get it. Some people just say it was just sheer accident. The biggest part to remain are the 2 banqueting houses, which were used for entertainment, which were adjacent on each side of the main house.
2 guys. Who are our 3rd and 4th chaps?
Well, the next one we might mention would be Robert Dover, who was anti-Puritan. I think somebody summed up the Puritan attitude to pleasure with that they taught that dancing was a Jezebel and barley break the ready road to hell. And Robert Dover was incensed by this and didn't want the native pastimes to be ignored or people being victimised for them. And he realised that Dover's Hill, which is part of the Scarp I mentioned earlier, which is about a mile to the west here, would make a marvellous sort of auditorium. And he instituted the Cotswold Olympic Games.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How long ago was this?
Well, he was born 11 years after Shakespeare.
Oh, so quite some time ago.
Oh, yes, rather.
Yes.
Yes.
And so he went up to Dover's Hill, and it was obviously named after him, was it?
Yes, yes. And he had, there was bear baiting and sports of all sorts, and shooting and archery and you name it.
He was a bit of a lad then.
Yes, and the villagers came in from all around. After one period of success, it was closed again because with the coming of the railways, the navvies were building Mickleton Hills Tunnel, which is about 2 miles towards Stratford. And of course, when they got paid, they came down into the town and spent their money on drink and
enjoyed themselves
and spoilt the games.
Oh, did they? What did they do?
So, well, I'll leave it to your imagination, but
oh, I see.
They were drunken and they spoilt the games.
Oh, right.
So they fell into disuse, but they were revived in this last century after the Second World War, and they are still held on Dover's Hill, and the present Catholic priest dresses up as Robert Dover. Right. And rides on and rides his horse down into the town with a torchlit procession behind him at the conclusion of the games down into the High Street where dancing and
all kinds of things happen. I thought you were going to say he dresses up as a navvy and went and spoilt the games.
Oh, no, he looks very splendid with a big hat. And
I can do that with a big hat.
Yes. Can you ride a horse though?
No, but I can stand by one.
Yes.
Looking very good. I've done that a lot, but done very little else. So you've got the revival then. Dover's legacy to the town is now being revived.
Yes.
Who's the 4th chap?
Well, I would say C.R. Ashby, who was a very prominent member of the arts and crafts movement in London, and most of the people associated with were in the East End. And he was an idealist who had visited the Cotswolds, which by this time, with the decline of the wool trade, had a lot of the properties were falling into disrepair. I think it would have been a good time to pick up a cottage cheap.
Yes, not now.
Not now.
Oh,
not now.
no.
And he encouraged a lot of arts and crafts people, silversmiths, leather workers, cabinet makers, to come to Campden about 1902.
Right.
And there is still a tradition of crafts in the town, and there are one or two names of craftsmen now whose families date back to that period.